Welcome back, everybody, to the Freeride Guide podcast. We've got another recap for you today, the Fieberbrunn Pro. My name is Mark Warner, your host, co-host, along with Mr. Derek Foose.
Yes, sir. Welcome back. Thanks for having me. All of those things. What a show.
No doubt. Hey, where are you?
I just got to Verbier. We drove from Fieberbrunn out here, drove with Lolo and Michelle Manning, the judges, and Marcus Gogan hitched a ride with us. So we are cozied up in our little apartment for the next little bit until we run the last comp of the season, the Extreme Verbier. Yeah, we're psyched. Like, I actually ran into Tiffany Pertin at dinner, former tour rider, right now sitting pretty high in the rankings on the Challenger. And she was riding Verbier today and said it is awesome. So looking forward to getting on slope and seeing what it looks like. And we got to see a picture of the back the other day from Nicholas Hale Woods, and it looks unbelievable. It's so fat.
Oh, sweet. When, what's the weather window?
So riders' arrival day is Thursday.
So like 4 or 5 days from now?
Yeah, totally. First possible comp day is Saturday.
So Thursday the 21st, first riders arrive. Comp day is a week today, potentially.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, from when we're recording this, anyways.
True.
Awesome.
Yeah. Let's keep our warped timeline in mind here.
Yeah. So I'll do my best to get this out today. But the comp we'll probably go next week. And then what does the forecast look for this next week?
It's kind of warming, but only really in the valley. Little bits and pieces of snow all the way through, and then it cools back down for the weekend. So, I mean, if things are in as good a shape as it looks like they are, I think we could be in for a banger. So yeah, pretty excited for this last one, and still kind of fizzing from the one we just had as well. It was incredible, and honestly, against all odds, incredible. Like leading up to it, we weren't sure we were having a comp at all. And it's just the Fieberbrunn Miracle delivered once again.
Right on. Well, that's why we are talking today, is to talk the Fieberbrunn recap. For those of you who are tuning in, please make sure you're subscribed to whatever podcast app you're listening to. You can get it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, all of them really. As well, we post these on YouTube so you can see our handsome faces.
Lock in.
Yeah, let's do that. And while you're at it, please give us a review and a 5 stars if you feel so inclined. We're really, really hoping that you guys help us grow this thing. We're having a great time doing it. And of course, if anything that we say during this episode of the show that you either think is great or you don't agree with or you have a comment on, send your feedback to backslap@freerideguidepodcast.com. It's the email line that we get all the feedback from you, and then we read those live on the show. So, Derek, you said that you weren't really sure if it was going to go down. You said it was pretty warm, and you're even talking about like this really unique slope maintenance that they were doing. What was that all about?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we arrived on last Thursday, and Lolo and Michelle and I went up onto the Wildseeloder, like hiked up, poked around, assessed the snow. It was great to look right down off the summit there where they put the start gate. It's so steep and rugged directly out of the top. But the snow was pretty good. At least 2/3 of the way down, it was reasonable, smooth, wintry snow. And then the bottom half was kind of refrozen really hard. So it was nice. We're like, okay, cool. We've got a little storm coming. This is gonna reset, and we're gonna be on. And then on Sunday, they got this thing called the Foose. It's a hot wind that blows, especially like into the Southern Alps from the Sahara. And it's kind of like the Chinook if you're a Canadian, in Western Canada, especially if you're in the prairies around Calgary. Same kind of deal. It blows up from the south, and it's hot. And almost regardless of aspect or elevation, it cooks the snow. And that's exactly what happened. So the riders all arrived on Monday. Sunday, we were back up at the summit, and essentially we were stepping out wet slide debris that had just shed off the face, these big, mushy, snowballed wet slides. especially on the rider's left side, like after the Heusel Cliff, that area that got so much action where Finn went and where Ben Richards went with the winning run. That whole, all those runouts of those middle airs were just full of like big frozen or semi-frozen by the time we got up there snowballs. So two groups
So
of people.
you're like manually grooming it?
100%. Shovels, ice axes, skis, anything. Basically, the goal was to make a smoothish surface that it could then snow on top of, and give the riders like okay landings and okay runouts. Like we knew it wasn't going to be good, but a lot better than fully refrozen debris. So it was a big chunk of work. But as soon as we saw the new snowfall on top of it and saw that it looked kind of smooth, it was for sure worth it because that zone saw a ton of play. So I think, I think it helped, and it was like, honestly, the lead up to this one was whatever we can do to make this work, because it was looking ugly. And then, the following day, like it went to -3 and everything just set right up. And we're like, oh my God, like, how are we going to do this? The day before the comp, Lolo and Bertie Denervode went up and rode one on each side. And it was super bad. Like, bad to the point where in the riders meeting the night before the comp, they said, if it's still like this in the morning, we're not running.
Really?
And so
this is the organizers this is
Yeah.
FWT, not the riders guild.
No, it was the FWT. They were not happy with the safety aspect, as well as just like it being even possible to do any of what those people do on these comp venues. And then it snowed a little bit and blew a bit, and the temperature kind of cooled off really slowly and pulled enough of the moisture out of it that it wasn't awful. I mean, it certainly wasn't the best conditions we've ever had in a comp, but as we saw from the show, it was good enough to compete on. And the riders did their thing and just showed why they are the best. But like going up in the morning, nobody thought it was happening. Like truly, it was dire. And then we got up there, and Lolo and Bertie again rode one side and the other for a snow assessment, because if they went up and it was unrideable, then they were going to call it that morning. And both of them came down with like powder in their mustaches and stuff. We're like, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a roller coaster on the lead up for sure, because we thought it wasn't on even right to the morning. A lot of the riders were having a tough time getting themselves into like comp headspace,
right?
Because they're looking at it going, well, there's no way this is on. And even having the organizers say, if it stays like this, it's not happening. And like, of course it's going to stay like that. What's going to change in one night?
Right.
And it flipped. And, honestly, like, I've been at Fieberbrunn enough times and witnessed it turn on a dime from garbage to good, that the Fieberbrunn Miracle is real. I believe in it completely, 100%. It just happens like time after time.
That's awesome. It is, like, I've been there twice, and both times it was quite challenging. Rainy. There was that one year, the Foon you were talking about, with the year that it dumped all that sand.
Yeah.
All across Europe, all over the slope. Like that was an interesting one, for sure. Well, I'm glad that the Fieberbrunn Miracle is a real thing, and that comp was good times. So this was a special comp because it was a 2-run format, which they only introduced, I believe, in 2022. Is that right?
Yep.
And this is only the second time they were actually able to do it, because last year they had to make up a challenger event in place, because one of the challengers had to get canceled. So they did it there and just did the one run, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, it was, I mean, I guess in a way it was 2 runs, but it was 2 different fields of competitors. And
Yeah.
The challengers athletes got to run on it after all the tour riders had just completely shit kicked it. So
Ripped it apart. Yeah.
yeah, they had their work cut out for them for sure, but they put on a good show, and it was great, man. Like to actually execute the 2-run format and see it play out like as designed. many riders in all different categories put down keepers on run 2. So that kind of proves the concept and was exciting, from a entertainment perspective. It's pretty sick to be able to go back up, or to see, your superheroes go back up and try again if they didn't exactly nail it. And yeah, I think it played out pretty much exactly as designed.
Yeah. So like with Snowboard Men, second Liam and Timmy, second and third, there was their second runs that counted. For Ski Women, it was Astrid for her second run. Snowboard Women, yeah. So it was kind of a half and half, to be honest with you. Ski Men for podium specifically, yeah, it was a nice split, to be honest with you. And I wasn't really sure what it was going to be, whether it was going to be everyone's going to give her at that first run, and a lot did, and then kind of sussed out that snow, I guess. So I guess for whatever, there's probably a multitude of reasons for each person why it didn't work, but it was cool because you did actually get a pretty similar even split between the first and second runs.
Yeah, as keepers.
Yeah.
And that's cool. And definitely you saw some people, like the strategy choices are so fascinating in this format, because some people are using run 1 to figure it out. Some people are going all in on run 1, and if it doesn't work out, then they can figure out why and redo it. And some people opted for completely different parts of the face, because the rider's left part was sort of falling apart in the sun. So it's really cool to see their minds ticking and the gears turning, and deciding, like, what are we going to do here? How am I going to play this? And definitely a few different strategies. Some panned out, some not so much, but it adds an exciting element to it. I mean, I don't think the riders would be up for it for every event, but for one a year, it's definitely a cool addition to the tour, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with that as well. And then so the running order. So everybody gets a bib pull for your first run. How did they decide the second? Did they do a second bit, like a second name draw?
Exactly. Yeah, they did a full second bib draw. So the second run, there was some talk about doing it the way they do in mountain bike slopestyle and ski racing, where the top ranked rider drops last. But the riders were super not into that, because they're like, well, why would we get punished for doing well?
Max Chabot ended up having to do that.
He totally did. Yeah. That was a wild one. There was a few odd things in the bib draw, specifically in Ski Men. Maxime drawing first and then last, and Oscar and Ben both drew the same number for both runs, which was, it was really kind of strange. But yeah, it was just a second random bib draw. So it was a reshuffle, and thanks to the FWT, they got a heli straight back up, because it's pretty small categories, with only 6 snowboard men, 5 ski women with Lily out, 4 snowboard women, and then only 10 ski men, with Carl not able to take the start. So, it was a fast turnaround.
Shockingly, it still took 5 hours.
Tell me about it.
It was still a long day, because I started watching at midnight. I went to bed at like 6 o'clock, because as soon as that comp was over, actually at the exact same time, the first Region 1 Challenger was going on, the Monte Rosa Freeride Paradise event. So I flipped over to that and watched it for like 10-15 minutes before literally the sun was literally coming up. I'm like, I gotta go to bed, man. But it was
big night of Freeride.
Yeah, big morning of Freeride. So a couple things I want to talk about is some funny themes that we saw here. Is actually we'll get to this a little bit later when we get into that segment. But let's just get right into the event then. So the running order was snowboard men, ski women, snowboard women, and ski men, and that stayed the same both times. And we have a new champion crowned for FWT 24. He won all 4 events. Victor Delarue.
Man, he was another one who really benefited from that second run. If it had been a 1-run comp, John Powell would have taken it. And I mean, what even is Victor. He keeps just coming up with with moves that nobody else is thinking about, with runs that are just so precise, but at the same time completely insane. It's just
Well,
awesome watching him do his thing, and this year it's just been completely his show from start to finish. I mean, 4 down and he's won all 4 of them. It's incredible.
is he going for the sweep? Has it happened? Has there?
No,
Has?
so
Can you hear me?
yeah, yeah, I gotcha.
Oh yeah. Hello. Oh, is he going for the sweep? Like, has that ever happened before? A full clean sweep?
Marian Erti is the closest with 4 in a row. Nobody's ever taken the whole season with 5. So for sure he's going for it, and no doubt there's not a place that he'd rather do it than Verbier, and there's not probably a place where he's more dangerous than on the back. So
No,
he's definitely
right?
he's definitely coming in riding, just a wave of confidence, and knowing that he's been able to win in all those other places that maybe the other riders are closer to him,
Right.
with it being the back, and likely starting from the top or very close to the top, obviously depending on conditions and assessment.
Right.
You'd be crazy to bet against him. I think the sweep is totally on the cards.
And that does that push him? Does that push him higher on the kind of like the legendary status list above his brother?
Okay, yeah, that's a great one. So if he he did win the title. With this title, he's now tied with Zav for 3 world championship titles.
Mm-hmm.
But Xavier never ran the table on a whole season. So
Right.
we'll see. Yeah, I would argue that it does for sure. I mean, it's hard to eclipse the legend status that Xavier Delarue has. Delarue. I keep saying his name wrong. Xavier Delarue.
He corrected you. He corrected you a couple weeks ago, didn't he?
He sure did in Georgia, and I said it right in the Fieberbrunn show, and then I just blew it again. So
Yeah.
it's a work in progress. Sorry, Victor. We'll get there.
You will get there. All right. So with his runs, I wasn't sure about it at first, so I had to go back and watch. So John Powell was the very first guy to drop, and I didn't know that was named after him. That sweet transfer over the Housel into that the transition, like just laced it. Victor did basically the same run, and then followed it up on his second lap with the same kind of with the same run basically. And I was like, hey, how did he get a 90? Like how was that any better? Because he was way back on his tail. I went back and looked at it. He spun into it.
Yeah, that was nuts. I did not think we were going to see that. I mean, hitting that transfer is enough. It was like
Yeah.
like we said, like John Powell did it a few years ago, and then did it last year again, and it blew everyone's minds. And Victor followed him off it on the first run, and did it arguably better. But the rest of his run wasn't quite as tight and tidy as John's was. And then on run 2, spinning that transfer, and he cased it. He cased it big time on the second run, but he just handled it. And I was the same. When Anna and I were kind of waiting for the score with that case, we didn't really think that it was going to stand up to what John's did. But obviously the spin into that is so technical, so difficult, so scary.
Oh yeah.
And he didn't fall. Yeah, he shorted it, but he didn't even bobble. He didn't put a hand down. He rode out
He wheelied it. He wheelied out
yeah,
of
like
it.
tail pressing out of there.
Yeah.
And then the rest of his run was total fire as well. So yeah, well-deserved score. And it's funny, it's one of these things that in the heat of the moment, you're like, was that as good? Like, it was a bit wild. And then when we saw the replay, I was like, oh yeah, no, for sure. Like, because I was surprised when the score dropped, and it was higher than John's, but then on rewatch, like 100% agree. And it's funny on the broadcast, I don't often speculate on what I think scores are going to be. And
Right.
that time I did, and I totally shanked it. So I got to just go back to just waiting, just wait quietly.
Just kind of sort it out. Wait for the judges to sort it out. So yeah, he just does what he does. Came up on top, took over the overall title, and now he's going for history next week.
Yeah, unreal. And then, you know, two more guys making full use of the 2-run format. Liam Rivera, he's been a bit quiet. He actually had a great run in Georgia. Before that, he had a bit of a tough time. And over rotated that backy on the jump that saw so much action through the whole day. And then just locked it in on the second run. The progression that we saw in this one comp, like in terms of people tricking features that weren't considered really trickable in the past. I mean, multiple tricks off that Heusel cliff. You know, we haven't really seen that. Like Ross Tester 360'd it, but other than that, we haven't seen people, you know, bombing tricks off that. And this time it was like almost mandatory.
In order to get anywhere, yeah, absolutely. Like Finn Billis a couple times, and like that's just the only one that's right in the top of my head. But that thing just got worked. That thing got absolutely worked. And I think that shows a lot of what you were talking about with conditions, because it was pretty disproportionate with that zone. Like, I can only think of maybe 3 or 4 riders that went skiers right, lookers left over towards like the eagle and that whole other side of the face. Everybody was just in that one little zone, which, you know, ski what works for you. But on a face that big and that impressive with that many options, I was kind of like, I was bummed. I was a little bit wanting for a show from the position of wanting a show.
Yeah, especially in terms of like line diversity. A lot of people did it in really different ways. You know, the variation from John and Victor transferring out to the rider's right. A couple of the ski women and Aaron, you know, and obviously we'll dive into this a little bit later, taking it a bit more from right to left, and then some people taking it like pumping in from higher where they had actually added tricks. I think the judges kind of spoke. You know, you mentioned it, like not that many people went out riders right, and the ones who did, even with banging runs, were not rewarded quite as highly for going over there. And to me, that was a judge's statement of they want to see not big tricks off small features, but they want to see if you're going to win or be in the mix for a win, they want to see tricks off big features, or are you biting off bigger chunks of terrain. So I think I mean, it was interesting to see. And like I said, we can dig into it a little bit more as we get into the categories that really affected, but it was definitely heavily used. And I was stoked to see Liam do 2 360s off that and stomp both of them.
Yeah. With like, yes, he had a great run, big 360 at the top, like that exposure above, which we actually saw a lot of. And then into the Housel, another 360, and then another air, big grab, big landed stomp backy a little bit farther down. I remember at one point, the first time the drone went straight over the Housel, I was like, oh, wow. And then later on, it went over the eagle. I was like, holy smokes. Like, it's no joke, man. But yeah, Liam, I guess, like you said, he started off a little slow this season. He's really starting to come into his own.
Yeah, he's picking it up. And the overall rankings in Snowboard Men, while obviously Victor is champ, the battle for second is really exciting. You know, we've got Timmy Schroeder, Liam, and John Pau all within less than 1,000 points, and with 12,000 points up for grabs for a win, it's really anybody's game now for that silver. You know, the second step in the overall. Obviously, Victor's run away with it completely, but those 3 guys with some real strong results already this year, and another big comp to come. You know, and it's hard to kind of figure out who's got the edge. Liam's a local. This is his backyard.
Yeah, he's going home next week. He's going home next week. Like he knows this place.
Totally. But John Pau is really good. The bigger and steeper it gets, the better he gets. So hard to look past him. And then Timmy Schroeder's just been on fire this year. Like, he's a rookie, but he's not riding like a rookie at all. So, you know, between the 3 of those guys, there's some hardware still up for grabs in the Snowboard Men's category.
Yeah, like 1,200 points separating them. Liam and John are separated by 5 points.
Yeah, it's insane. Like whoever is higher than the other one is gonna be above in the rankings. So that'll be
Yep.
fun to watch that play out on the big mama.
So if you fall, you get up and you do something cool after because you'll still get points, right? And in that specific instance, every point will count.
Big time, yeah, and it's such a small category too, so it's gonna be tight right down to the wire.
Yeah, very, 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 very exciting. And then Timmy in third place. He's just fun to watch. He had a really speedy his second run that counted. Really, really speedy. But he had a big 360 kind of to a butt check at the top, which if he was able to, put it down, I think he probably would have scored a little higher. And he pointed it off the housel, just sent it, and he sent like 3 or 4 threes in that run. It was I thought he's just planning on like taking flight.
He looked like he was having so much fun.
Yeah.
He really looked like that was a blast to ride. Some of the runs you watch and you're like, oh, that looks scary. Timmy's run just looked like fun. Like if I was a snowboarder, I'd want to do it like that. Like that looked like a good time. And
Yeah.
he's just like always a good time. He's always with a smile, cracking jokes. You saw him in the finish, just like face straight into the camera, like
You're talking
yeah,
about you're talking about the snowman on air.
yeah, that was so funny. Everyone else was like so intense. Chabot and Hitzig were out there like binos on, and Timmy's just screwing around building this giant snowball, like way taller than him. Him and Holden, they were like up on each other's shoulders trying to get the head on. It was great.
So that's Snowboard Men. The next up was Ski Women, which was very, very interesting. After this event, Astrid has now moved into I guess the yellow bib or the fire bib after this event, so she's moved ahead into the lead. And I was watching Hedvig's run versus Menon's run. I went back and watched them both. So they ended up Astrid in top spot with her second run. Hedvig scored her first run, and Manon with her first run as well. So, Astrid, for instance, her first run, well, both of her runs were different than everyone else's. Like she was one of those people that went over to where the eagle was, skiers right, lookers left. I think the only ski women skier that went over to that spot. And she Billy goated her way through that gnar and then off the edge. Like it was both runs were great. Her first one, she tried to land that backflip, but just kind of didn't quite hit it. Stomped the second one. Went off that lower cliff, like super fun line choice. And that was really cool to see. Cause like I said, in a competition where it was just all in one spot, being able to watch that was really refreshing.
Yeah, big time. And I really like the combo of truly big mountain Billy Goat Gnar and then the freestyle at the bottom. Like Astrid really kind of, connected the dots with the two different styles. And the face kind of offers like two different sections. The top part is really steep and really rugged and aggressive, big mountain feel. And then there's that long apron in the middle, and then it gets a little more playful, and there's some jumps and stuff down there. And she just comboed it so well. And the change she made in her eagle approach on run 2, where she came in fall line direct above it instead of wrapping around and traversing in. She said that was super scary because she knew there was going to be a ton of slough coming down, and she didn't want to get washed off the second step of the eagle with her slough. So she kind of took her time approaching it, hooked out a little bit, and put herself into like a heinous looking rock ride turn to get onto the platform to then take off. But it definitely paid off with her second win on the tour in her rookie season. So Astrid's definitely in command right now. But the other two, both Hedvig and Menon, are super close. And Hedvig's first run was solid.
It was absolutely like stomp the housel. Watching her ski, it was just a classic Hedvig run. Stomp the housel. I think the traverse to the wind lip. So with that consistent run that we were talking about, a lot of people hit the housel. I'd say 80, 90% people kind of went up that way. Then they went over traverse to that little windlip. Then there was the air just below the windlip. And they traversed back and hit the little donger in the middle with the backflip spot. And then from there, they either went right or left to that little cliff on the left, or they found something over on the right. So there was like 4 or 5 features that almost everybody hit. I'd say the majority of everybody hit. So kind of watching how everybody approach them a little differently. Sometimes you look, I was looking at Manon and Hedvig's run. So Astrid was 86.33, Hedvig was 82.33, and Manon was 82. So pretty similar. So I tried to like dissect the 2 different runs to see, well, what could you have done better, or what could you have done differently, and how did you end up getting this this score versus that score? So Hedvig he stomped the Housel, went quite slow over to that little windlip where a lot of people were trying to trick on it. She didn't really have a lot of speed to get up to it. I think I don't know why, just kind of, taking it easy, making sure she knew where she was. And then went to the backflip spot, which was important to note that she stomped it. She was the 3rd person into that spot for the backflip. The first 2 were Liam and Astrid, and both of them cased it. So she was the first person to actually put it down on her feet.
Yep. And then the right person for the job, for sure. I mean, she's so good at backflips, so dialed that there was never even a chance that wasn't going to work.
Right. And then she skied around that lower cliff. She kind of avoided it. And thinking back on it, I'm thinking, if she had hit that cliff, there's a good chance she could be on the top spot, honestly. Just from, like I said, I'm not doing the run for whatever reason, but just looking and saying, like, oh, could they have picked up points here? Could they have lost points there? That was kind of fun to see. And then Manon Lowski's run, which was pretty much the same. She kind of went into that chute just beside the Hauser Cliff and then came back from like skiers right to skiers left over the ridge onto John Powell's little transition. So a very unique entrance. She's the only person that really went that way. And then got some air off that windlip that Hedvig went a little slower into.
Well, I do need to step in there, because the reason Hedvig went slow into that windlip is then she turned and aired off the rock that forms the windlip. So if she went cooking into that and aired across, then she loses that drop. And by going further out, like the drop out further out to the left was shit. So I think that was tactical on the approach. And I actually recall calling it exactly as you just did when she was doing that. I was like, oh, she's going really, like, she's not even gonna be able to jump off this. And then she like hopped into the fall line and punted off the nose of it. So yeah, I did just want to jump in there, because it was, I thought the same until I realized where she was going. And then I was like, oh, okay, that makes way more sense.
Yeah. So she knew where she was going too. And maybe it's just a shame that it looks like, because we were both like, well, what's happening? Where's she going? And that's just perception from the viewer, right? She knew what she was doing, but that perception from the viewer, I wonder how that affected like the judge's opinion of what they saw too, right? And then with Manon's run continuing, she hit that the air off the windlip and then the backflip. But then something I really noticed as well, which could have cost her, is she went ultra slow through those roller balls down lower, which was smart.
Barely moving.
Yeah, which was, I guess, smart, because like you want to stay on your feet, you just put down a good run, and it paid off to a point where she ended up in 3rd place. But did it cost her that extra 0.33 to move ahead of Hedvig by not bombing down through the bottom? Like, did it slow down her fluidity score?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think both of them had opportunity to stack up some line score in that lower section that was missed. I think you're bang on. If Hedvig had hit that bottom cliff, I think she would have been right in the mix and really forced the judges to work on first place. But I think as it was, the way she skied around that, and the judges talk about that a lot. They are not keen on watching riders go around features. And I will say, I guess in their defense, both her and Manon, on that lower apron on run 1, the snow was real bad, and they were skiing defensively with decent runs in their pockets that they didn't want to blow in that like dream killer zone. where you take a small air and end up blowing up in the roller balls or whatever. So it got better in the second run, but obviously neither of them were able to capitalize on run two.
Right. So really fascinating because that, like that category is pretty tight as well. Right now, currently sitting in top spot is Astrid with 26,095 points. Hedvig's in second with 24,000 even. And Manon is in third with 23,625. So really, she's only 325 points below Hedvig and less than 2,000 or less than 3,000 behind Astrid. So all three of them have the ability to take the overall. And then Sabile secretly kind of hiding behind. She has an opportunity to finish on the overall podium as well as Zuzana. So
yeah,
pretty
big time. Like, look, Sabile has a win already in Georgia, and she's the only one in the ski women's field that's won on the back.
right.
So she's going to be at home. So yeah, total dark horse there. Where you look at the rankings, you're like, oh yeah, you're in fifth. It's not really happening. But with another win and a 12,000 point win as well, at home, like, it's not unlikely that Sabile could pull that out. And I haven't done the math, but it would rocket her up the standings. But between Hedvig, Manon, and Astrid, it feels like whichever one of those three is above the other ones, obviously depending on what happens with Sabile for sure. And Zuza as well. I mean, Zuza was pretty beat up after that comp. Her knee was really sore. She was limping around. So optimistic that physio and some rest can take care of that. But we'll see how she ends up doing. It's got to be tough going into the gnarliest comp of the year when your body's not full cooperation.
Right. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Like, it's going to be exciting to watch. I'm looking forward to it because ski women is, and like, I think Hedvig said it on the broadcast down in the Finnish corral. 3 ski women landed backflips this comp.
Yeah, exactly. And Zuza did a 3. Like, that category is so sick right now. They're hitting the, like, everybody's got to add freestyle elements to their runs to score well. And it's like this collective agreement where, like, yeah, we're all sending. Everybody's going for it every time, and there's no holding back. And from my seat, it's the greatest possible thing because it's one of the most exciting categories to watch right now, and I'm loving it.
I don't even know if it's really an agreement other than like, oh crap, I got to do this or I'm going to lose.
Oh, totally. Yeah. yeah. It's an unspoken agreement by where you have to do it if you want to do well, because the other girls are going to. And you know what? You can take that even another step, just jumping ahead of ourselves a little bit, but watching the challengers comps, and I'll speak specifically to the North American side, the region 2, because I actually watched that broadcast. The Monte Rosa one I couldn't because it was happening at the same time as we were in the thick of it. Backflips, front flips, flat spins in the ski women's categories, 360s all over the place. Lydia Nelson, if you haven't watched this, you got to go to her Instagram and watch this backflip. It's the biggest backflip I've seen in women's competition probably ever.
Yeah.
Stomped. Bigger than any backflip on the tour this year.
Saw it this morning.
She's skiing
where was that
challengers.
Where was that during the first 3 events, right?
Well, totally. But just keep in mind, Lydia's 19 years old. She went into the tour and she's competing against Hedvig, which she probably had posters of her on her wall. So she was a little intimidated. And now she's skiing with rage on the challengers with a clear goal of, like, I actually do belong there. And I want to get back and do what I know I can do on that stage. That it was just so sick. So it's not just on the tour. It's women skiing right now, top to bottom, is just on fire. And I'm going to give a huge amount of the credit to Hedvig for kind of breaking the seal on women going full freestyle in these comps, and to see what that seed has sown all the way through from juniors to the pros is unbelievable. It's so cool. And I hope she feels proud of it. I know right now, maybe she doesn't have time to, because the girls that she inspired are now trying to beat her.
Yeah.
Like on the tour, but it's very cool to see it in this place, like all the way through. And it's just, the level is insane.
Yeah, it's amazing. I can hear Neil Williman's head in my mind. Hedvig Vessel blowing my mind. What a classic clip. And like a groundbreaking moment in Freeride, which was, all Hedvig.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's exciting. And like I said, well, and we're going to, I guess, cover a little bit of the challengers at the end of this one, because they had the Region 2 Challenger was yesterday in Crested Butte. They had the Monte Rosa Challenger at the same time as the Fieberbrunn Pro event. So I think maybe at the end here, we'll just kind of, I got to watch bits and pieces of both. I didn't get to watch all of it. So we'll just kind of summarize some of the, I guess, the winners' podiums, just kind of what the rankings are at the end of this one. Before we get to that, Snowboard Women, which was another really great event. So Erin Sauve, has she woken up, so to speak? Had she figured out this visual inspection stuff? And I say that because she scored a 90 in Snowboard Women. Has that ever happened?
I don't think I've seen a 90-point run in Snowboard Women. And yeah, like the dragon is awake. It's been really cool to watch the evolution of Erin on the tour. We obviously knew she had a super high level, banging through the challengers and winning everything last year, and figuring out visual inspection, figuring out line, sitting in the riders meeting and listen to the judges say, we're going to reward the send. That's what we want to see out of this category. You show it to us, we will throw points at it. And Erin just sat there and took notes and went, oh yeah, that's what you want? All right, I'll give you that. And that run was so sick. And I have a feeling, like we just talked about with Hedvig, that is going to ripple through Snowboard Women, from the tour to the challengers and qualifiers to the young girls on the junior tour, across both regions, and really light a fire under all of them. Because why not? Like, there's no reason that those women can't do those things. And Erin just showed that, like, to a T. Like, yeah, let's get after it. Let's send it. And that was just so impressive. It's the first time in competition that a Snowboard Woman has even gone off that cliff. And she made it look fantastic. Like, it was incredible. It was such a great moment. That was like a groundbreaking moment in competitive freeride. And I'm just so happy for Erin. She's such a great spirit and such an awesome person. And to see her kind of evolve this year has been magic. And that was for sure not the end of it.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
She's hungry now.
Yeah, there was a 17-point gap between first and second place in this event alone. And like I said, do you think it was just because, like you just spoke with Lydia, first few events, you got to get your feet underneath you, so to speak, figure out what's going on? Like, is it because she's figured out the visual inspection process? Like, do you think there's a specific reason for it? Have you talked to her about it?
Yeah, I talked to her a bunch, because everybody kind of left Fieberbrunn the day after the comp, and Aaron and John Powell, Marcus, like there were a few of them that stuck around for an extra day. So we were a way smaller crew there last night. So we were all having dinner together and hanging out, and it was pretty much all of the above of what you just said. She's gotten better at visual inspection. She understands how it works now, but she's also she's looking at the mountain differently. She's not looking to put together a run with a bunch of small features. She's looking for the highlight reel. That's what she wants to do. She wants everybody to see how rad she is. And I would say mission accomplished on that front. She blew everyone away. Like you said, 17 points to second place. Like, come on. That was a blowout. And
yeah, blowout. Absolutely. And you know what? She's also like a little older than a lot of she's a rookie on the tour. But she's actually quite a bit older than a lot of the riders on tour. Just she came into Freeride a little bit later. So potentially a little bit of that maturity of riding her whole life has come into play here a little bit. I would highly think that that's a factor.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. She's got a mature approach to a point. I mean, she's still hucking herself off big cliffs. So that's, I don't know if mature is the right word for that, but she certainly just understood the task that the judges have laid out for all tour riders and stepped into it big time. Like, there's pressure there. And now she's put herself, like, with that result, she's got a first, a second, and a third that she's holding on to. So all podium results. And going into Verbier, it's crazy tight in the top 3 in Snowboard Women. Like crazy tight.
Before we get to that, I'd like to just talk about her run specifically. So why she had that big run was that huge air off the Housel cliff. Like you said, the only Snowboard Women that's ever really hit that cliff, even though a lot of people did today for that category, it's pretty unique. And then the lower half of her run, she just had pace. Like, yeah, she was flying, like significantly, visibly faster than majority of like runs that you see in that category.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, that wasn't a score that was based on one hit. That score was a complete package of a run, very well thought out, well put together, and just ridden to perfection. It was so good to see. And honestly, like, I think that 17-point gap was completely warranted. Like, both Anna and Nuria went through that chute on the rider's left. It's tight and techy, but there's no airs in there. There's no features. You're riding down a couloir. It was great. It was, I'm sure it was fun to ride. They definitely had to do some slough management, both of them. And then they just looked like, and maybe this is something, Erin's talked a lot about, like athleticism and fitness and strength. Maybe it was just the others were getting a little bit more thrown around by the rough snow, and Erin was able to just kind of muscle her way through it. But it looked different. It looked visibly different watching that.
Absolutely. Anna Martinez came in second. She had a 72 and a 73. One of the things I liked about her runs is she did 2 different runs. It seemed like most of the riders went through their run and then they did their run again. She took 2 completely different lines, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I think that was smart too, because the snow over there on the rider's left was falling apart towards the end of the day as the sun got on it, and it was just a little bit drier, a little less affected from the heat on the other side. So that was a strategy choice, and it was I think it was a wise one. And that's something that the 2-run format gives you the option of.
Yeah, because, let's just say that because the snow was a little worse off and she didn't like that run that she took through the Housel was a 72. She did her second run was a little bit lookers left, skiers right, riders right. And she got a 73. So she improved her line score by 1. But if she had done the same line and didn't equal because maybe the snow was a little deteriorated or whatever, well, she wouldn't have ended up in second place because Nuria, she had a 72 on her first run. Really smooth in the kind of that little S couloir, had lots of little small features. But her second run, she had a big slam. So who knows, but potentially going in that new zone, avoiding, the deteriorated snow. It's a bit of a gamble because you don't know what you're going to get, but she ended up improving her line score by 1, which put her into second place by that 1 point.
Yeah, so it was definitely a good move from Anna to get over there and try something different and bump herself up by that 1 point because, put her in second.
Yeah, absolutely. So back to what you were talking about when you were getting into the rankings. So Nuria is on top. Like, this is even closer. This is the closest rank that we have on the whole thing. So out of all 4, so Nuria is in 27,675. She's in top spot. She's got 2 firsts and a third. Anna is only 600 or only 75 points below her. And then Erin is only 800 points below Anna. And it's interesting because both Anna and Aaron both have a first, second, and third place. But the points are different because Anna came in second last week in Georgia. Pardon me. Because Anna came in second at this event versus Aaron's second in Georgia, where you get 1,600 points higher. So even though they have the same results that count, a first, second, and a third, it's just depending on when you get them, that's changed the outcome. So currently, sitting in first place is Nuria, sitting in second place is Anna, and sitting in third is Aaron. And Estelle isn't far behind either. She's got 20,550 points as well, because she also has 2 podiums versus I guess the other 3 podiums.
Yeah, and a tough day for Estelle on the Wildseeloder, going down on both runs. That was definitely not her day, but she's going to come back swinging. I think the French riders thrive on the bigger faces, so we may see some magic out of her, and potentially a little bit of Aaron Sauve inspired sending as well. So I'm really excited to see the Snowboard women get after it in Verbier. I think it's going to be a good show, and it's really down to the wire for them for the overall title.
I'm excited about Verbier because this year we've already had a comp in Verbier. So a lot of those riders had a chance to see that face, even the rookies, because there's a lot of rookies that are on this list. The rookies are able to see what it was all about. They've ridden the Petit Bec, so they've been kind of on that face. They've been on that aspect. So I'm really excited to see how everybody's mindset is, what their approach is moving into Verbier next week, which is really, really exciting. So should we move on to ski men?
Yes. Last category of the day. We had Maxime Chablot dropping first in run 1 and had a scorcher going until the end. Like, the first one out of the gate, that's a huge amount of pressure in any category. And for him to just roll in, double backflip right off the top. And then he was a bit of a victim, him and Oscar both, they went 1-2 on run 1 of some really hard snow. He found a landing there on that cork 7 at the bottom that just, he was not, and he's a strong dude, was just not able to hold it. It just crumpled him completely. And for sure that must have been tough, but luckily
great way to start. As Anna said on the broadcast, an Annaism, he had good ingredients, but needed to work on the seasoning a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, like we've even talked about Max and his like strategy. Like sometimes he'll like wash. He's talked about like landing and washing his ski out and like doing what he needs to do in order to stay on his feet. But that one, he just got spun out, super firm, got spun out. Then Oscar, and this year it's just been bonkers watching this category. It's just been so unbelievably exciting. Before we get too far into it, there's a couple funny things that happened during that event, and notable points to bring up. No Carl Regner. So I was on YouTube on the chat and someone was like, "Hey, where's Carl?" I was like, "Wait a minute, yeah, where is Carl?" So I actually texted him, and he told me that he was watching at the Peak Performance office in Ora in Sweden, because he kind of tweaked his knee a little bit, so he's just taking this one off to rest, but he expects to be back in Verbier. So we hope he heals up quickly. A couple other kind of funny things that we noticed was Christopher Trudell. He didn't podium, but he could have. He's the only guy to hit the eagle, the famous eagle, which was just pure free ride. Now, for the last couple of years, we've been talking about is the FWT switching to like a freestyle competition. Is it only freestyle? We finally get on a comp face where you can do both, and only one person, with the exception obviously of Astrid Billy goating through it, only one person sent this legendary cliff. There's no more Imar. There's no more Reina. There's no more Carl. Even Christopher, when he got down at the bottom, he was like, Carl and Reina, Eagle buddies. He called them out.
I love that.
But that is like one of my like favorite parts of this whole like competition circuit is people hitting the eagle, being able to point it and send it super fast. And he's the only one. So, freestyle versus freeride. Have we really fully and completely finally crossed over to freestyle? Where you're not going to expect stuff like that because people know that they're going to have to throw a cork 7 or they're going to have to throw a double backflip in order to win or in order to place well.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I don't think so. I think it kind of requires both right now. And I mean, just looking at the scoring and the runs, the eagle was unbelievable, but the bottom of Turdel's run wasn't quite as exciting as some of the other bottom runs. Him and Hitzig and Marcus probably won the top with the things that they did. But I mean, I agree. The eagle is just unbelievable, and that was probably the best snow conditions on the face. Right there in the middle, it's like due north facing. It doesn't ever get any sun on it. It was pretty smooth. I mean, it's also, I think there's a little bit of lies being told when you watch Christopher do it because he makes it look so easy and so good. You're like, oh, right. Well, I don't know why everyone doesn't do that. They don't want to. Like, I mean, I had a long talk with Marcus about it, and I remember going through this years ago with Tom Pfeiffer, like, bro, send the eagle. They're like, no way.
Like the drone angle, my notes here, the drone angle is wild because it went down and followed them over top of it, as I mentioned earlier, and it's insane. So he staying with Christopher, he ended up getting a 93, which is pretty freaking amazing on any other year except for this one, apparently. Because he ended up in, I think, 4th overall at this event, which is just crazy, man. Like that's wild. So, but he decided he was only going to do the 1 run instead of 2, which I found quite interesting. And I just thought now, because he's a smart guy, right? He's like, all right, that's a 93. That's pretty good. I'm going to be up there. I'll be safe. I don't necessarily have to do that again because it's scary. But I also realized that he broke his pole halfway through. I remember you saying like he has 1 pole, he like snapped it in half. Do you know? And I'm thinking maybe that's why he didn't want to go again. He didn't have another pole.
He could have found a pole. He could have found a pole. I think.
Do you know why?
He felt like he couldn't do it better than that. He didn't have more in the tank, so he was like, I don't need to go send the eagle again. I can't even imagine, the mindset to do that once, let alone to go off it twice.
Do it twice.
Yeah, and so I think he was happy at it. He's like, I can't do that better. I did everything I had in the tank. I don't need to go risk my life again. I think he was just satisfied to leave it. And after run 1, he was, like you said, he was sitting at 2nd. So, but there was still 2 more people to go in the, because he dropped I think 8th. There's 2 more riders to go, but then there was whole second round still to go. So, and based on last week, there were 7 guys in the 90s. Like that's pretty bold to, if you know yourself, then fine. But you can't really count on staying in 2nd, which he didn't. Another comp this year, 6 riders with 90s, and Finn and Max Hitzig had 2 90-point runs. So that is insane.
There were 8 90-point runs between like 20 runners.
Yeah,
that's almost 50%.
They're skiing. Bender got an 87 and finished 9th. Yeah, like 87 has won comps before. He got an 87 and came 9th. And you can't take away anything from what he did. It's just the level of the entire field is so high. They're pushing each other all so hard. And the stomp rate is pretty good. I mean, the 2 run thing definitely helped out a couple people for sure, but just incredible riding all the way around. The skill level is through the roof right now, and it's great. It's so much fun to watch.
It is great. It's almost like, where else can we go though? You know what I mean? Like I'm loving it. It's so exciting, but in order to get on the podium, like you got to get a 90, almost a 95. Like that's wild. That's
Yeah,
insane. And like I said, almost 50% of the runs were in the 90s. It was
awesome.
it's just, yeah, awesome. So let's get to these podium riders. We have Ben Richards winning his very first FWT event with a 97, which was an unreal run. As we were talking, spinning over the housel, like huge spin over the housel, over to that wind lip, 360, and then launched off that bottom section, and then another massive floaty 360, and then that last big air, he hit the fall line fast. Like
Yeah, not a single.
that guy was in a rush. Like he needed to put more money in the meter because he didn't want to get a ticket for his car or something like that. Like that guy was rushing to the bottom real quick.
Not a single speed check in the whole run. And on his first run, when he did go down, everyone was just like, "Oh, like that was a winning run."
Yep.
He was so committed. The air above the hosel, and then just straight lining off it. That all of it, like there was no even sense of trying to slow down or wanting to slow down. It wasn't like he was out of control. He was just pinned, and the whole run was just so beautiful. I love how Ben skis. Like his actual touch for the snow is so supple and so smooth. He's going 1,000 miles an hour. It doesn't even look like it. He's not getting throttled around or pushed or bent out of shape or anything. He's just handling it, and it looks nice. It looks so smooth. It's just a pleasure to watch. And that one, I think, of the whole day was probably the easiest judging decision they had to make, because it was clearly a cut above the rest of the field.
And cut above his first run. So that was his second run, and he did the same line, ended up crashing at the bottom. And so this was just like a redo. So this is that exact example. Hey, I get a redo. And he did the same line, and he did it much better.
Not quite the same line. He didn't go into that half pipe gully.
Oh, right.
At the bottom. And I don't know if you guys could hear it in the broadcast, but when he got down and he had crashed there, Chablot was like, rule number 1 of Fieberbrunn, don't go to the half pipe. And Ben's answer was classic. He's like, dude, I wish you would have told me that yesterday.
He had another great quote after his winning run. He's like, my favorite skiing to do is fast.
That interview was hilarious.
Yeah, it was awesome. Second place, Max Hitzig, on his second run as well. So I want to talk about his first run a little bit. He had a 90.33 for his first run, which is great. But watching it by his standards, I think he got overscored for that first run. He had a huge 360, and he laced that transition, that line that no one really, he was the only person to kind of ski it that way. But it was the most loose I have ever seen him, ever.
Yeah, I think that whole score was pinned to that first move. Because the rest of his run was wild, and he just looked like he was linking recoveries together the entire way down. But you can't short sell that move at the top. Nobody else is even hitting that. That's another one like the Eagle, where the other riders are like, no, thank you. Like an air that big, that close to the rocks. And yeah, sure, the transition is good. Like it's a smooth connection from the takeoff to the landing. It's really, really far. I got to stand under it when we were out stamping snowballs. And the distance that you have to carry to make that transition is so much. He almost fell approaching it, and then still just somehow was able to pull his whole head together and spin it. And spinning right as he does, he's actually moving towards the rocks in the landing. As he sets his rotation to the right, it's pushing him more right. landed it so perfect on the first one. So I think a huge amount of that first run score was completely linked to that move, because without a doubt, to me, that was the single move of the day.
You think so?
And he did it twice.
Yeah, he did twice. The second one, it wasn't quite as smooth, but he transitioned straight to that wind lip off the back, to a backflip off that wind lip, and then pinned it through the foul line over the bottom. Like, he held on, another big backflip, and then a really like Andrew Pollard like cross court air at the bottom, with a lot of distance. As Anna mentioned, quite a tidy run.
It was a tidy run.
Tidy run for that one. So he definitely cleaned it up. 95.33, which put him in second. So that's another guy who has, podiumed every single event. He's got 2 firsts, a third, and a second. Can you imagine throwing away a podium? Like,
yeah, it's unbelievable. The tear he's been on this season. One kind of wild run, and it didn't count.
No, exactly. Like, last year was his first year on tour, and he blew us away with that launching backflip off the diving board in Golden. But it took him, I guess, that year to kind of really, to that point, to kind of really figure it out, because we had talked about him coming up, winning every single event that he went into, which eventually got him on the tour. Last year, there was a short adjustment period at the beginning of the season until he got to Golden. And then since then, it's just been lights out. Like, he's been the guy to beat.
Yeah.
And then third place, Marcus Goguen, with another adventure. He's just an adventure. He's just an adventure. He got a 94.67, a big top 3, and then another 3 over the Housel Cliff, which seemed to be what you got to do now. It's gone from the guy naming it, got named because the first person hit it, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody hit that cliff, to now, however many years later, people launching 360s over it in order to win. If you don't, you don't really. He had a fast cross court back to this little lily pad in the middle with the double, kind of that little sideways. That was super unique, I think, line wise, because he ended up cruising like sea carving almost uphill to get to this little spot, aired onto that little lily pad, and then off, and then big backy, which he off the middle, which he almost lost.
Yeah, his foot definitely popped out there, and he was not that stoked.
Full ski ballet, man. Like, his foot was like behind him, and his ski was horizontal to the slope, and he brought that back up. Like, that just shows me the strength of that kid.
Yeah, he wasn't. He was like, that was so sketchy. Again, like in Georgia, like, I can't believe I pulled that off. And I mean, another one where a big chunk of the score was tied to the top of his run, the 360 above the Heusel and then flying off it. It's so committing to do that. And other guys were spinning the wind lip on the way in, which Marcus also did, but then to hook out on top of that fin that separates the couloir from the approach ramp to the Heusel cliff, and like air cliff drop, bomb drop almost onto it. He landed super close to the rocks, but obviously it was fine. He was cleared of them, to then dead straight line off the Heusel cliff. Like, that's so committed. It's so committed, because if that 360 doesn't work out, it's going to be bad. And
it's going to be bad. And then, so Ben got his 97 on his second run. Marcus actually dropped in right after Ben on that second run through. So he's probably thinking, oh, damn it. Like, and Max's was there as well. So he's probably thinking like, oh man, I got to put something down. So he actually went in and tried to, double backflip that middle section, that middle, lip, whatever we were calling it, the backflip feature.
Yeah,
really.
The backflip jump.
So he tried to hit it as a double and then ended up Tommying, which was unfortunate. And it's interesting because as the event went on, a lot of people were hitting that, a couple crashes, right? The first 2 people, Liam and Astrid, crashed on it. A little bit later on, when the snow started to soften up, we had Nuria put a huge bomb hole into that thing and then Oscar Mandan, who I think you said he plugged himself into the slope. So they put these huge bomb holes in there, and I was kind of hoping that it wouldn't. I'm glad it didn't. But there was a potential for someone to like hit that hole and like really cause themselves problems.
Yeah. I mean, Oscar and Marcus double backflipping that thing. I mean, the distance they went was almost to uphill. And I mean, Oscar, whatever, that was a different story because he basically did a 1.5 and landed on his face. But Marcus had the rotation, but just couldn't hold the impact. And if you get a chance to see the drone footage of it, they've done it, in super slow motion, and he's so high off the ground to just like parking lot flat. They've set it up to like the classical music, Ave Maria, and with the slow-mo, it's just beautiful. And then watching those slow-mo tumbles, it's 2 of those this year that they've done to that classical music. They did it with Stan as well after Kicking Horse, and it's just magic to watch the ultra slow-mo, like fully stretched out cartwheeling. But yeah, the double backflip definitely did not work out. And then Marcus had to go on a full mission to get his skis back because they just took off.
Yeah. And people were giving him credit for skiing down that on one foot for a while. So those are the top 3. Before we get to the kind of the rankings, I want to talk about a couple other riders that have that are notable runs. Tenra, another great run, 90, which was his first run. But his second run, he lost his helmet off of the first backflip, which I guess you guys kind of figured out partway through listening to the broadcast, but he lost his helmet, but still threw down. No helmets, no goggles, didn't even hesitate, not a foot out. Like he's like, oh, I'm still going for this. No big deal.
Yeah. So I caught up with him after the comp and was like, so when your helmet flew off, you didn't just shut it down? He's like, oh no, like I kept wanting to, and I just couldn't. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I couldn't slow down. I just had to do it. I just couldn't stop. I was like, okay, so that's like a magnifying glass into Tenla's freeride soul. He was unable to stop himself from executing his run, although his helmet and goggles shot off on his very first air.
Laser focused. Anna was like, he's popping and locking, and at the bottom you're like, no helmet, no goggles, no problem.
Yeah. And you know what, Tenla honestly got pretty lucky because on that bottom 3 where Maxime Chablot crashed on the first run and Bender crashed on the first run, he punch fronted, and I was really worried that he drove his head into the ground without a helmet on, but he was able to kind of tuck and roll it out and was okay. But he even said, he's like, that was dumb. Like I definitely should not have done that, and I got away with it.
Impressive though. Impressive.
Oh, big time. Totally. Yeah. It was nuts. It's just, skiing down from like, the top of a lift to another lift without your goggles on, your eyes are streaming and watering and stuff. Just do a FWT, like probably 90 something point run without a goggle or without goggles or a helmet on is wild.
With tricks, like, and unfortunately that counts as a no score because he lost his gear, like mandatory pieces of gear. Like he started with them, but he didn't finish with them. I don't know if I've ever
have it across the finish line. Yeah,
I don't remember that happening before. I can't think of it. I'm sure it has, but I can't think of an instance of that happening before.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, so the riders have a list of mandatory gear that they have to ride with. Their airbag, shovel, probe, transceiver, helmet. And you got to have both your skis on, and it's in the rule book. Like it.
But does it say in the rule book that you have to you can start with it, but you have to finish with it?
Because it does. It actually does.
And is it because of Tom Pfeiffer a couple years ago when he a Kicking Horse in 2022 when his like airbag exploded and he blasted across the finish line with his airbag out? Like, does that count?
It's
like he has it, but it's not functional anymore.
It's to prevent riders from going through the safety check and having all their gear and then getting up to the top and taking the canister out of their airbag or their shovel and probe out because it makes it lighter. So the rule is that you've got to have it for the whole run until you cross the finish,
Is
and
that a
all
thing?
mandatory gear counts.
Would that be a thing though? Because like when I ride with my pack, there's not enough in there to make it be like they're not like skimo racers slash.
Well,
It's like an FWT
yeah,
enduro. They should. I
saving
wonder.
every gram.
Yeah, like an FWT enduro race, have them like get up there as fast as they can, time them, and then score them as on the rundown. That would be something new.
Well, they did that at Cold Rush years ago. Remember, it was like backcountry big air. It was a big mountain run, and it was a skinning race. And Dave Treadway just had his way with it. He kept winning everything because he was so fast on the skins.
Right. I don't know if that was Cold Rush, but I do know that what you're talking about. Yeah, I forgot
It
about
was
that.
definitely Cold Rush.
Was it
One of
Cold
the
Rush?
early ones. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Before
right.
it evolved into the later, they realized that was silly.
The FWT enduro. I don't know if I'd watch that actually.
But anyway, you got to have all your gear on
Right.
across the line, and without a helmet was yeah,
Right.
unfortunately no. I mean, also he ate it, so it wasn't going to be a big score anyway. I saw Instagram going off about that, and I was like, well, he crashed. Let's not forget that. Like
Are
the it,
are
wa- it,
are poles
it
part of the mandatory gear?
no.
Okay, because I don't know if we've ever seen anybody do a no pole run, but then obviously Christopher had snapped his pole. He didn't
Yeah, there's
finish
been a
with the
few
pole.
broken ones or dropped ones, but yeah, no, they don't care about poles.
Did he break it on the impact after the eagle?
Yeah, I think it was just a bit after that. I was trying to pick it up on the replay, the exact moment where it snapped. But I mean, my assumption was he just 4-pointed so hard that that one of his poles was like, nah, this is too
Nah.
much. I don't want to do the eagle again.
And then we gotta give a shout out to Finn Billis with 290s. Two amazing runs. Which once again, you gotta be like, really, like what do you gotta do here? In order, like he finished in fifth and he had 290s. Like, what do you got to do? Like the big hand drag 360 and then another 360 up the Housel Cliff, flat spin Japan grab, perfect seven, another 360 on the bottom air. You thought that he did a left and a right spin. I actually watched it. He actually spun right both ways.
Yeah, he spun right both times. I picked it up. I just that hand drag 3 was so cool, and I was like, oh, was that the other way? But yeah, no, the guy's unbelievable. He is
Yeah, and then
unbelievable. He's so skilled. He's so talented, and he's riding scores in the 90s. Like other years, those are wins.
yeah, and now he's fifth place and he got 290s. So it's like, what do you got to do, man? Like his second run was faster tricks, speed, a little bit higher speed. He had that straight seven. I think that's that's where he got his score dropped a little bit because that first seven was this beautiful cork seven. That second one was just the up and down like seven that I would do just because I can't. And I don't know if he did it on purpose or not because it was different, and whether the
Yeah, I
judges
still don't know. I meant to ask him about that, but because
and
that cork 7 with the blunt, like it was
it seems like it would be
beautiful.
harder to do, right? Like
Yeah,
in his,
it's
I'm
harder for
curious.
Finn to be unstylish than it is for him to do
Yeah.
that for sure. That was
So
probably
here I'm thinking, did he do that because in his mind this is a harder trick than the one that I did before? But did the judges pick up on that? Like is that straight up spinning on like a one axis, not corked, but an up and down axis? Is that harder than doing a cork seven? I personally couldn't tell you, but maybe it is. In his mind, he's like, oh, maybe I'm going to spin this way because this is a slightly harder. Maybe I'll get scored higher. But is that something the judges even know? So I don't know, because there's got to be a reason he did that, right?
yeah. We'll have to check in with him.
And then he gets to the bottom and he goes, that was very Kiwi snow. And obviously he knows how to handle it very well. So, and another thing I just wanted to make note of, looking at Instagram, I saw Max Palm Instagram, his Instagram story, and he actually showed Finn's run and just said, quote, Finn way too good for the judges to understand. So that's kind of what I'm wondering about. Maybe like I said, we've had this conversation on the show before, is like he's had these talks with them so that they understand him and he understands them. Is this potentially a moment where there's that disconnect again? Maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this was a hard comp to judge, especially with 2 runs, and the level of riding and the level of commitment was just so high that yeah, like a score in the 90s like that is should honestly be an event winner. But when you've got guys spinning the hits a gap, going 1,000 miles an hour like Ben, you know, spinning into the Heusel cliff off a cliff, like not off the wind lip where Finn did the hand drag, but off a cliff, like
Yeah.
all of those things, or so those three examples, and then the Eagle, that's what beat Finn. Those are the four guys. So I I don't know. I don't know if it's that they don't understand or just that the I think that's a huge score, right? In any
Yeah.
comp, that's a huge score. But when it comes to ranking, like, do you rank a hand drag and then pinning it off versus spinning above it off a cliff, or I don't know. I mean, I'm I guess just thankful that I don't have to be the one to decide, and I just get excited about it, because it's got to be just so hard right now piecing together the minutia of those runs to place ranking and make scores, because the runs are all just so good. It's almost
Yeah.
like it's just a movie now. You're watching a ski movie and oh, Finn Billis's part. Did you see Finn Billis's part in Fieberbrunn the
Yeah.
movie? Like,
Yeah. And then to end the comp, as we said, Maxime Chablot kind of bookended he's first to drop, last to drop. And his last run was fantastic. Like double. Yeah, I think he put a hand down on that double. Cork 7, another backy. Like, he had an amazing run, but at the bottom, it was a bit of drama and suspense, which was kind of cool. Everybody was waiting to see he put down a heater of a run. Everyone was kind of waiting to see what he would get scored, which was a 93.3, which was, good enough for sixth place.
Sixth.
Which is just mind boggling, because you're looking at this and like, oh, where's he going to go? Like, so the whole event was just, again, every week, the level goes up and up and up a little bit. Like I said, this is another week where we had six riders, but eight 90 scores.
Yeah. I think Chablot's score was a statement from the judges that they want to see that stuff off big features. They want to see big mountain. They want to see freeride, big freeride in freeride. And if you're going to do those techie tricks, let's have it off something big and gnarly. I think that's the way I read it. And I definitely, like, obviously Instagram went nuts with Chablot supporters. He was robbed. That was bullshit. But also there were a lot of like, let's say, heavy hitters in the freeride world that were weighing in, by text and on socials, being like, okay, cool. Like, it's nice to see that the big mountain stuff still has a place and still will score. The commitment of those moves above cliffs and off big cliffs versus, like Cork 7 and double backy, intense tricks, and still 90-point score, but without the amplitude of the size of the features. Taking, I would say that Chablot pretty much, given the conditions that we had, maxed out that side. I think he did the most you could do on that side, in terms of scoring. And
Yeah.
that was a huge score, but it was the sixth place run that day, based on what the judges are saying they want to see, in that, on that day. So yeah, I don't know. Whatever. Obviously, it's judge sports, so people are going to have differing opinions on who should finish where. But that's kind of the way I saw it. That was a statement from them that they want to see progression on big cliffs, not just taking the smaller features out to their max.
And you know what? Ultimately, it's amazing that we're able to see a comp that's creating this kind of discourse. Like, this is what we want from this. This is what the FWT wants from this. They want people to argue and discuss and disagree, because that means something really cool is happening.
Yeah, engagement for sure. And we got that in spades.
Right.
Because you got the one camp. Sorry, I didn't mean to beat a dead horse here, but you got the one camp, which is Turdell, where people are like, that should have been scored higher. And you got the other camp saying Maxime should have been scored higher, but you can't have both those runs scored higher, because somebody has to come ahead of somebody. and they were about as polar opposite as you could ever get. So yeah, I think you're totally right. I think that's probably the best thing for the sport that you've, and also I love the fact that both of those styles can exist under the umbrella of freeride and still, like, yeah, maybe Maxime wasn't stoked to finish sixth and maybe Turdell wasn't stoked to finish fourth, but both of them are in the 90-point range in probably the strongest field we've ever had on the tour, doing things completely differently. You look at slopestyle now, nobody's doing anything different. It's all kind of the, obviously it's insanely technical and difficult, but it's very similar. The top guys are doing similar things. Maxime and Christopher couldn't have been more different in this comp, and both of them are well in the mix, right in the hunt for it. So I just think that's so cool that both of those styles can still exist in the one sport and still be both rewarded at a very high level. I mean, let's be serious. Both of them dropped 90-point scores in the same comp and finish fourth and sixth respectively, which is nuts.
Which is great. And I just hope that, that big mountain free ride style isn't, like, I'm glad Christopher's holding on to it, but I'm hoping it's not going extinct, right? We lost Eimer, we lost Reina. Obviously Carl is capable, Carl and Christopher are capable of doing both styles. But I'm hoping that, I'm glad Christopher's back on tour this year. I'm super excited he got that wild card for this exact reason, because, I don't want to see a comp where there isn't that. I don't want to come and see a Fieberbrunn where that isn't a thing.
I agree completely. And I think that the venues are going to be the determining factor in that. We're not going to see the side to side to side freestyle line get rewarded on the back. It just isn't. Pinned, fall line, big airs, that's what's going to play on the back, especially on the big back.
Looking at Ben and Max and straight fast fall line.
And also I think we need to be honest with ourselves. Let's say Hitzig and Marcus could probably do what Christopher did. They chose not to because it was scary or whatever, but they opted to do something else. It's not like that's not in their wheelhouse to do that. They're just choosing to do a different thing. They're looking at the Eagle and going, there's no trick there. I mean, Marcus was talking about it today. I was like, what do you think? Could a 3 happen on the Eagle? And he's like, nah, too fast. And he's like, a backy, you'd catch your tips. He's like, the only thing you could do is a front flip there. So we're calling Abel or JPack if he makes the tour, to send a front flip over the Eagle.
JPack sent a double front flip in competition.
That was outrageous.
Yeah. So that wraps up another pretty exciting event, the Fieberbrunn Pro. First event of the finals, double run format. Next up, we're heading into the final event, the Verbier Extreme, which is always a good time as long as the slope doesn't avalanche away and they get to run it. Definitely, I'm hoping that that can't happen 2 years in a row, because we want to see. I want to see that final comp go down. There's so much at stake between all the different categories. Ski men, Max Hitzig isn't running away with it, but he's got a bit of a cushion. He's got a 3,000 point cushion. Marcus is in second. Ben Richards is sitting in fourth. Then Christopher Turdell. All of them within about 6,500 points.
I think Ben's in third.
Oh, sorry. What did I say?
Fourth.
So yeah, pardon me. Ben's in fourth. Ben's in third. Christopher in fourth. Then Tenra. Then Finn. I'd say Tenra and Finn are a little bit kind of longer shots, just based on all the points that are given out, unless the top 2 or 3 crash out. But Max, Marcus, Ben, and Turdell look like I think Max has to fall this next event in order for any of those guys to take it. But we will see. So that's ski men. The snowboard women rankings is probably the closest I have ever seen an event. The top 3 are separated by less than 1,000 points.
Yeah, basically a tie. They're going into a tie, a 3-way tie. Whoever comes out on top gets it.
Yeah, basically a tie. And then we've got ski women, which we have it right here. So ski women is also extremely close. Astrid, Hedvig, Manon, 1, 2, 3. And then with snowboard men, well, that's already been decided. But it is an exciting battle for second place
Yeah.
with Timmy Schrader, Liam Rivera, Jonathan Penfield, John Powell, and they're basically tied as well. There's
Yeah,
less
it's
than
so close. 5
800
points
points.
between Liam and John. That's outrageous.
Yeah, so we've got some really cool battles lined up for Verbier, and let's hope that runs. Like I said, we've had some challenging conditions here this season, but it's exciting that this one, the the Miracle of Fieberbrunn, came through once again, and Verbier should be really, really exciting.
Yeah, so maybe just a quick touch on the two challenger comps, in terms of rankings right now and comp results. We had the Crested Butte Challenger run yesterday. Conrad Niven, Brian Bozak going 1-2, Tilden Woolley in third. So those three guys right now sitting on the good side. But the first event rankings are, well, they're one, and you get three. So there's definitely still all to play for on that side. The ski women was nuts at Crested Butte, absolutely nuts. So many heavy sends, so many tricks. Lydia Nelson, to me, the move of the day, coming second after getting cut from the tour. Britta Winans, real
She had a
stoked for
heater
her.
run. I actually saw her run. She had a heater of a run.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
It was
And then
kind of cool. Like the two ski winners, Tom Pfeiffer and Britta, both had a similar style, I'd say, just like all out speed, full throttle off big airs. It was very cool to see that style of freeride, it's still alive and well and scoring very well.
yeah, and then some familiar names. So like we said, we talked about Lydia earlier. Familiar names: Molly Armanino. She came in 5th. Addison in 7th place. Molly's not that far behind, and Addison's run was good. She put it down. She didn't really do anything exciting in terms of like big tricks or anything like that, but she got a
Well,
run
a
in.
pretty big three in there.
Oh, that's right. Excuse me. She did have a pretty big 3 in there, so she did what she needed to do. For the ski men, as you said, Tom Pfeiffer, he just will not go away. He's in top spot. They get four riders will move on. Dylan Flinders, who has trying to make his way back onto the tour, is sitting in 4th. Tyler Curl, which we've talked about a few times, he's sitting in 5th place. And
Yeah. And then this was wild. Three kids out of the Whistler Freeride Club in a three-way tie for 8th. Jackson Bathgate, Locke Harvey, and Wei Tian Ho tied for 8th in that comp. I don't know if I've ever seen a three-way tie for any position in a freeride comp. Like that's kind of an insane result, to have three guys tied in one position.
well, I guess when you have 32 riders, it's not it's bound to happen, I
Yeah.
guess. But that's
Yeah, maybe.
that's ski men rankings for the challenger there. For ski women, we talked about. For snowboard women, for the Americas event, we have Audrey Hebert, which we actually spoke about, I think, on the Cut Challengers edition. And then for the snowboard men, for the Americas, we have Conrad Niven and Brian Bozak. I actually didn't see either of their runs. Brian Stenerson sitting in 4th place, so he's hanging in there. It's only the first of 3, so
Yeah.
he's actually set himself all right. If that's a throwaway, that's great. You could be in a worse spot. And then for the Europe Oceania, so in snowboard men, Cesar Barin, who I don't really know, but Hugo Serra sitting solid in 2nd place, and only 2 will move on from ski or snowboard men. And then Ludo Guidiat, we were wondering, is he done yet? Apparently not.
He is not done.
He's sitting in 4th place, so he's sitting okay. For snowboard women, Noemi Ikwe is in first place, another familiar name. Tiffany Paraten is sitting solid in second. And Anna Orlova is down in fourth place. So they're doing okay through there. And then
I just want to just quickly highlight the number of French riders, like the top 4 snowboard men, 3 of the top 2 snowboard women. Like the French right now are absolutely on fire. And as we move into the ski categories, it doesn't look any different.
Mm-mm.
There's just so many French riders right now that are just powering on the Challenger and on the World Tour. There's something going on in France right now in freeride that they're doing something right.
No, I agree. They're rolling hot, rolling heavy right now. In the Oceania Europe Challenger, the rankings, Lena Kohler from Germany is in first. Jenna Keller from Switzerland. She was actually just here in Whistler skiing POW with the head crew. I ended up chatting with her. I had one of her teammates, Emil Groundbaum, come for the LPP show and had a little chat with her. And she literally just flew back, had the night, and then went and entered the competition and came in second place. And then Mia McNabb, who we've mentioned, in third from France as well. And then finally, the ski men, 4 go. Benoit Lamour, I actually turned it on right when he was going. He sent 2 massive backflips. Paul Denton from Switzerland, Max Zimmerman, who we've spoken about, and then last week on the cut episode, you mentioned Niels Versen from Sweden. He's sitting in 4th spot.
Yeah, so still all to play for. The Region 1 athletes are going to get 4 goes, so it'll be best 3 of 4. Region 2 is best 2 of 3. So the Region 1 athletes have a little bit more padding right now in the challengers, the ones that maybe didn't do so well. And there's quite a few heavy hitters down a bit lower. There was a lot of crashing in that Monte Rosa comp. So yeah, we'll see how that bounces back coming up later this week in Kitzsteinhorn in Austria. That's their next stop on the Challengers. And then the Region 2 next stop, they're going to Silverton for the first time for a freeride comp. So I think that's going to be really cool to see, a full backcountry resort. They have 1 chairlift and basically ski touring and helicopters. So that's going to be a good one.
Should be very cool. And then, so the FWT Challenger 1, they had kind of the full broadcast setup. It's almost similar to what you'd get to FWT, which, it's in Europe. It's easy. And they have the energy and the interest and the money for it over there. The Region 2 event was presented through Free Skier magazine. And the other 2 will be as well. I may be down there helping out with that. We'll see. We'll put it out on the Instagram account if I'm going to make it there. But I hope to get down for Silverton and Kirkwood, as I think it's going to be cool. And then the IFSA is really putting a lot of energy. Up till now, it's just been focused on competitions, focused on the riders, focusing on the events. But now they're really putting a lot of energy in to kind of bring it up to the level that we'll get from those European competitions, which is really cool. So make sure you guys are tuning in and following along with the IFSA. Watch the event on Free Skier magazine streaming because they're stepping it up, and that freeride in North America, as we talked about on that last event, there's that little bit of disparity now. We had a lot of the Region 2 riders get cut, so we gotta, speaking on behalf of Region 2 here, we're stepping our game up. We realize, countries like France and Germany and Switzerland are really kind of running away with things. Well, we're coming for you. We got that underdog spirit. We're going to see a lot of these riders, a lot of these kids coming for it. And we're going to try and do the same with, presenting the sport here in the US and Canada as well.
Good. Well, there's so much freeride going on right now. I mean, in 3 days, we had 2 Challenger comps and an FWT, and there's plenty more to come. 2 more Challengers on the North American side, 3 more on the European side, and another big one at the FWT, the Extreme Verbier, the Yeti Extreme Verbier. Coming up, first possible day is next Sunday. So looking forward to that. The riders are going to start arriving here in Verbier in the next couple of days. We'll get a look at the Beck. We'll post some pictures. And make sure if you are liking what you're hearing or hating what you're hearing, write in to the backslap at freerideguidepodcast.com. We want to hear from you, and we want to tell your story on the podcast. So make sure you write in and give us your thoughts, because we want to hear them.
Couldn't say it better myself. You can find the Freeride Guide on every podcast platform: Amazon, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can watch this on YouTube as well. So please go subscribe, follow, like, review, rate, do all that stuff. We are growing. We want you guys to come along with us, and we got some cool stuff coming up, I think, in the future. We're working on some things. Anyways, thanks, Derek, for tuning in. No, thank you for joining in, as always. Thank you guys for thank you guys for tuning in. And let's hear what we have to say, and we will talk to you guys again soon. Thanks.
See ya.
This has been a Redmark Media production.